Anish, welcome to BetMGM tonight. Let's go ahead and jump into it right now, my man. In Carolina's first preseason game, the fantasy community got a whole lot of Tetairoa McMillan, at least a taste in the early going. And Bryce Young and him hooked up impressively in a couple of catches for 43 yards. What have you seen of the youngster so far in training camp? What are your expectations for him in year one? And let me just set a random line for you. Over or under 999.5 receiving yards for McMillan this season?
Well, now I need my crystal ball. I just pulled out my jump to conclusions, Matt. But I think with Ted McMillan, listen, he's going to be their number one receiver this year. He's going to be the go-to target. You saw it in a couple instances where if he's got a one-on-one matchup, he's so good at the contested catch. And you saw it in the first preseason game. He's still a rookie, and he'll make mistakes like he did when he dropped the ball in the end zone that should have been a touchdown. But the upside is there. His catch radius is absurd. What I've observed in training camp and throughout practice, you throw the ball in his vicinity, odds are he's going to catch it. He can catch it off his helmet, off his hip, down by his knees. He can catch it with one hand. He's smooth doing it. So it may be maybe a slower build. He might not be, that impact guy right away. It may take a few weeks, but I do think by the end of the season, he's going to be your number one wide receiver.
We were doing the show, watching the preseason game, and usually I don't overreact to preseason action, but I was distracted. We were trying to do a baseball segment. I couldn't do it, man, because Bryce looks so good. I'm looking at his touchdown passes right now. You could bet this, 16.5. What do you expect now, year three? Obviously some growing pains the first two seasons, but another year now in Dave Canales' offense. I think that number is way too low, and if he could stay healthy, I don't think he's going to get benched, and I think he's going to have a monster season. What are your expectations for Bryce Young now?
Yeah, I think he's going to have a pretty strong season. 16 seems really low to me, especially when you consider how he finished last season. If you factor in rushing and passing touchdowns, 10 total touchdowns, no picks over the last 3 weeks of the season. In that span, in terms of QBR, only Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes were better than Bryce Young. And what we saw in Atlanta, Week 18, a lot is made of that. 5 touchdowns, his coming out party, a tour de force performance, all that. That wasn't a fluke. It was a gradual buildup of the previous 7-8 weeks. When he came off the bench and when he finally got his chance to start again, it was a slow and steady buildup, right? They beat New Orleans. The Saints fired the coach. We're all going, all right, let's not get ahead of ourselves. They go and beat the Giants in Munich. The Giants then cut Daniel Jones. And everybody says, okay, let's dip the toe in the water. We're not sure if we want to go any deeper than that. Then there's a bye week, and then all of a sudden he goes toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, a game the Panthers almost won. They almost beat the Eagles, if not for a dropped catch late. Those are your two teams that played in the Super Bowl. They had the Bucs on the ropes at home with the ball in plus territory in overtime, and their sure-handed running back, Chuba Hubbard, fumbles it away. So there were a lot of positive signs over the final half of the season, and there was this gradual buildup of him just getting better and better and better. And I said this at the top of the broadcast in our first preseason game. I said, what you saw at the tail end of 2024, that is the launch point for 2025, and it starts with Bryce Young.
I know a lot of people really like Carolina, and some people are betting them to win the division. The only reason that I can't get there yet, and I do think they're going to be much improved, is the defense. Last year, 32nd, they gave up over 30 points per game, 400 yards. If you're a Carolina fan or somebody that's high on this team, what are some encouraging signs from the offseason or that you've seen maybe at camp or just that first preseason game that makes you believe that they're going to be a little bit better this year and more competitive?
Well, that's a great question. One, you have to remember last year they were not just bad on defense, but they were historically bad. They gave up 3,000-plus rushing yards, which had not been done since 1980 by any team. I get it. We play 17, not 16 now, but still it had been a long time. They gave up more points last season than any team in the history of the NFL. Again, one more game, part of it, but still not good. Well, for starters, you get Derek Brown back, who 2 years ago when he played in every game, was the first defensive lineman to have 100-plus tackles in a season. He's a game wrecker. I think the guys were saying 95 Madden rating, to put it in perspective for your audience. Like, this guy is a game wrecker. They added Bobby Brown, who they got from the Rams as a free agent, next to him at nose tackle, 6'4", 340. The guy who was playing that position most of last year was about 6'1", 300. So now you have a nose tackle who can eat up two blockers. Derek Brown demands a double team. It's going to open up stuff for the guys on the outside. They can't get any worse defensively. It's really hard to do that. They're so much better up front and deeper on the D-line. They went out and they got Turk Wharton. They drafted Cam Jackson for depth at nose tackle. So if they go from historically bad to, let's just say, average, maybe even slightly below average, that should represent a significant improvement from last year, especially when you factor in on the offensive side. Again, if Bryce takes the great leap, you can start to dream a little bit. But if he just incrementally takes the next step, it's going to be a much better football team than last year.
We're talking to the great Anish Shroff right now, all things Carolina Panthers. Why? Well, he's a play-by-play boys for that franchise, also a play-by-play announcer and on-air host for ESPN. Give him a follow, would you kindly, on X at Shroff, PXP. Again, on X at Shroff, PXP. Anish, you're talking about the defense, and that could play into the hands of one Chuba Hubbard. If they do play at least at an average level and are competitive, he might get some soul away the clock opportunities, unlike he did last year. Still, last season, he saw 77.9% of the team's opportunity share in 15 games. Are you anticipating more of the same of that volume type? And what's your overall outlook for the Oklahoma State former Cowboy?
Well, there's a much better caddy this year for Chuba Hubbard. They went and signed Rico Dowdle from Dallas, who was a 1,000-yard rusher in his own right a year ago. So you got 2,000-yard backs. I think that lightens the load somewhat on Hubbard. Miles Sanders was a free agent signing a couple of years ago from Philly. It just didn't work. And he was never the guy in Carolina that he was in Philly. So Hubbard had to carry the big load. I think you have a guy who can offload some of that, especially in the second half, to keep that run game fresh. So will he run for close to 1,200 yards again? I would probably hedge lower, but I think the Panthers as a whole, with both Dowdle and Hubbard, should have a better running game than they did last year.
Yeah, definitely, especially with that defense. Again, vastly improves from a season ago. But Chuba Hubbard, I still believe, is going to be a firm RB2 in 12-team fantasy drafts. Anish, we'll get you out of here on this. Speaking of fantasy, managers are always looking for the next big sleeper on offense. Is there one player you really see as a potential breakout this upcoming season?
Yeah, I do, and it's Jalen Coker. If you look at Jalen Coker a year ago, yeah, and this is kind of maybe from left field for a lot of fans not familiar with him. He was a guy who was an undrafted rookie out of Holy Cross, was actually cut at the end of August before the rosters went down to 53, re-signed to the practice squad. He was somebody that impressed in camp, got a little banged up, finally started to get his opportunity when Adam Thielen went down. I thought he played real well down the stretch. You look at his numbers. I mean, he only played about a half season when you look at his snaps. He's been tremendous in training camp. He's gotten faster. He's gotten leaner. Xavier Legette got ejected for fighting in the first quarter of the Cleveland game on Friday. Coker steps into his spot. He has the touchdown catch. The Panthers only score. Had another big 40-yard catch that was negated by a penalty. He brought it in with one hand. What we saw last year and what we're seeing so far this year, this is a guy who makes plays. It's going to be hard to keep him off the field. He's a guy that I would use a late-round draft pick on, stash on your bench, and you know what? You get to week 4, week 5, week 6, you might have a diamond sitting on your bench, and you might have a guy who can be a big playmaker for you late in the season.
Anish, I heart you, man. That is an outstanding pull, and I saw that touchdown reception. I thought the same thing. I was getting beers with my buddy, and he actually drafted him the very next day based on that play. Right now his ADP, and this is real, folks, 269.05. He's the 89th wide receiver off the fantasy draft boards at the current moment. So deep sleeper, Anish just gave you one awesome one on Jalen Coker. Anish Shroff, we appreciate all the time that you gave us and the tremendous insights as well. Again, follow him. He's a voice at ESPN, play-by-play voice as well for the Carolina Panthers. And again, follow him on X at Shroff, PXP. Again, on X at Shroff, PXP. Anish, again, thank you for the time, and hopefully we'll catch up over the course of the season.
All right. Good luck, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. There he goes. Anish Shroff. Man, that was a great poll. Jalen Coker.
Yep.
And I agree. I'll be honest with you. And, a lot of people like, oh, you're probably just feeding me and shoveling a giant pile of BS here, Evans. But no, this is God's honest truth. Jalen Coker, there was a moment for like about a 2 to 3 week stretch last year in the regular season, about late in the year or middle portion of the season, where his player props began to surface on BetMGM. And they were low. They were like in the 29.5 to like 35.5 yard range. And he just kept hitting the over. Was he blowing it away? No. He might have got like 3 catches for 42 yards or 4 catches for 45 yards. But it was a low threshold. I think as a player, if you're trying to unearth some of those values based on the reasons that Anish just laid out, Jalen Coker could pay a lot of dividends early on the season, not only for fantasy football fans, but also for those that are trying to find those diamonds in the rough to boost their bankrolls in the world of player prop betting.
You know what, man? I really wanted Jalen Coker, to be honest. You got to remember, like last year, he did have 4 games with at least 60 receiving yards. 6 games, he played at least 68% of the snaps, and Bryce was the starting quarterback when he wasn't benched. He had pretty good numbers. He had an 18.3% target share, 55.7 receiving yards per game. I like Xavier Legette, but yeah, he got kicked out of that game. And Coker averaged 11.4 PPR points per game. And I kind of like him as well. We were on the air, and I can't even take credit. Rob Brown was like, who's my fantasy sleeper this year? Jalen Coker. And then he catches that touchdown like 2 minutes later. But yeah, I like him as well, man. I think Carolina's offense is going to be exciting. I know it was only 2 drives, but I really like what I saw from Bryce and that 4-week, 5-week stretch, last year. Even that game against Kansas City, they should have won. And Bryce was pushing the ball down the field. That's the thing. He's not a dink and dunk quarterback. He's going to look to move the ball down the field. So I do like Coker. I think there's some decent value.
Yeah, definitely. Coker could be one hell of a drug. Thank you very much. This fantasy football season, McMillan's a guy I think is definitely going to flirt with 1,000 yards, if not greatly exceeded, along with probably 8 to 10 touchdowns. And I agree with Bryce Young. I had a super flex draft auction / salary cap style like Casa de Evans a couple of weeks ago. I spent an obscene amount, admittedly, on Bryce Young as my super flex because I think he has a opportunity to be maybe everything falls into place, a back-end quarterback 1 in 12-team format.